welcome to the Fit Dads podcast. My name's Ryan Dutton. I'm joined by Brad Thompson, and Brad, it's a controversial one today, mate. We're going over our 5 most hated things about the fitness industry. We've got 5 things written down each. Mm-hmm. I actually know yours, but you don't know mine, do you? So
I'm quite excited to hear yours, to be fair.
So we're going to discuss just some things that get on our nerves, basically, whether it's, the people in the industry, whether it's the messages, or the potential pet hates. We're going to discuss it all, basically. So it's a little bit of a controversial one today, shall we say. But before we get into it, mate, how's your week been? All right?
It's been good. We've had a big milestone this week.
Go on.
Ted started making his bed.
Has he? Okay.
It's amazing. He makes a big song and dance about it.
Right.
Yeah.
How have you got him into that?
No idea. I think he's seen us do it.
Right.
Me specifically.
Okay.
Sorry, Emma. Me specifically.
So just copied behaviour?
Yeah. Come in one day and says, Dad, I've made my bed. And I'm like, that's
Off his own back?
Off his own back.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love
I'm
that.
Staggered.
You give Ted a lot of shit, but that's actually pretty good.
Yeah. So I'm really proud of him. So we made pancakes that morning. But
That's his little reward.
Yeah. And then
so are you hoping this is going to be like a daily thing now? He goes in there, makes his bed every morning?
Yeah, it's quite Instagrammable, isn't it? You know, like the guy who says, make your bed if you want discipline. I'm like, it starts now.
Very militant.
Yeah, it starts now. But no, I'm just really proud of him in that sense, because it's like quite a big, I don't know why he'd decide to do it. He doesn't know that it's going to build momentum for his day when he gets a bit older. Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody wants to climb into an unmade bed, do they?
No.
Yeah, and then apart from that, mate, I got trolled this week.
You did? Oh,
I did,
God.
yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Yeah,
because it was after, do you know what's a funny thing? Before we tell the audience what the troll was saying it was about, the last episode that went out was about, what was the last episode about?
I feel like I should know this.
Yeah, I can't remember, but whatever it was, at the start of it, I was clipping some of the film down, and you had a big stretch at the start, and you went, before we get into it, I should probably tell you that Amy said to me before we jumped on that I should train my arms before I come in, and then I saw your post like half an hour after I edited that, and I thought, he's getting it home from his missus, telling me that his arms aren't big enough. Now some troll online is giving him shit for not being big enough. I feel like you're about to start going down the Mexican supplement route, mate. And,
potentially, it's on the cards, mate. I feel like if anyone, destroys my confidence anymore, that's it.
What did the troll online say?
He said, skinny guys trying to encourage you to build muscle. And I've tried to like erase it from my mind, like, says, what a joke. And then my response is very much quite like, kill it with kindness. Like, thanks for your feedback, pal. Yeah. Thumbs up. And he kept coming.
Did he?
Yeah. And I was just shutting it down. Like, noted, thank you.
He gave you like a paragraph then as to why you weren't qualified in inverted commas to give out this advice. And then you kind of came with quite a kind of disarming message, just a short sentence. It said, thanks for your feedback, but do one, basically.
It sounded quite sarky, which was technically supposed to be a bit sarky, but
and then he'd come back with another paragraph afterwards, like, I can't finish. He was ready to go again.
It's fine.
Some people look, let's be totally honest, is this a guy that you want to get into an online battle with? Someone who's going round, comment on random PT's posts about whether they're big enough to be giving out information. The stupid thing about this post was, you weren't talking about like how to get jacked to go on the Olympia stage. You weren't talking about how to, what cycle you're doing on your steroids to try and get massive. You were talking about how the average Joe can just tone up and build a small amount of muscle. Yeah. That was the fascinating thing about it. I think this is just someone who's delusional, got some issues, and you definitely don't want to get into a fight with.
It was weird. He kept encouraging me to be different and not. I think one of the comments were like, don't pull your socks up any higher, which,
What does that mean?
Like, as in, because everybody's doing it. And then he proceeded to tell me to be different and then told me to do what everybody else was doing. And I'm like, right, you haven't got a clue what you're talking about.
Just contradicting himself.
So he just thought, it's what it is. And then the saving grace of all this is I found that there's a troll emoji on the iPhone, which is fantastic. So I'm just going to comment that next time.
Brilliant. 100%.
It's a good emoji as well.
Do you know what? I'll tell you a story. I've not had a massive amount of pushback online in the years I've been doing this. But what I will say is, when I was first starting out, there was a couple of brothers that I knew from when I was a young kid. We went to the same high school, same primary school, and one of them started commenting on my posts. And I think he was into his training at the time, and he was doing a little bit of research on nutrition and stuff like that. And I was putting out some posts about certain things, and he was commenting saying, "No, that's wrong. This is wrong." And it wasn't just like one post; it was like quite a lot of my posts, and it became like a running thing. Whereas when I was thinking about even making content, I was thinking, "Is this guy going to comment on it? Yeah. Will he agree with this?" And it got into my head a little bit, and then I ended up just blocking him. It was actually on Facebook, so it was at the time when I could just unfriend someone, block them, and get them out there. But I'm thinking, this is like the first hater I've got. And I actually commented on one of the posts. I said, mate, I think you're my first hater. I must have made it. I must be on the big leagues now, because I've got someone who's coming on my posts like every time and commenting. But that was hard when it was someone I knew as well, trying to get involved.
Yeah, it's a tough one, mate. Yeah. On a more positive note, how was your week?
Really good, yeah. Just same old really, not nothing too crazy. Harlow, we've all got the running bug at the moment. My missus has started doing some running again, which is great to see her out and about. The little one is now started moving quicker. My dad came over the weekend. He lives in Liverpool, so he comes over maybe once every 2 or 3 months. And from the last time he was here, he said, God, she's quick, she can move. So, and I mentioned it before, I think Harlow generally is a bit more physically developed than she is mentally, which sounds really bad saying that, like she's some kind of dumbass, but she's not. But at that age, she's just, for whatever reason, she's always been confident moving around and being more physical. And now she started like doing this little sprint. She'll do it up and down the corridor in here. She was doing it in the park at the weekend. And
nice.
So everyone's out running. I've found me running shoes recently, and Amy's back out, and Harlow's now started sprinting. So we've all got the running bug, which is great.
Amazing. That's what you want, mate. Proper fit family.
100%, yeah. Who knows? And we actually watched the London Marathon at the weekend as well. And
nice.
I was thinking one day, you know what, it'd be nice to give that a go, maybe a marathon. I know I mentioned Sheffield Half Marathon, potentially giving that a go next year. But a marathon's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? And,
not into the ballot.
The ballot?
Yeah, ballot for London Marathon.
No.
I did it straight away.
Did you?
Yeah.
What, to get a ticket?
I do it every year.
What, to get a ticket?
Yeah, no, I enter ballot every year. Odds of getting in is quite slim. But
Is
like
it?
if you get picked out at ballot, it's like... Yeah.
Is the ballot like you get a free ticket kind of thing?
I think you get the opportunity to buy a ticket. That's how it works. Because it's so exclusive.
So they don't give out like... that's
So
interesting.
you can do it for charity places, but I do it every year. I've always said if I were to do one marathon, it'd be...
London Marathon.
It'd be London, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's relatively flat as well, isn't it? So
flat and iconic.
Good one today.
Yeah.
But just seeing the pain in some of them faces is does put me off. But
It's a grim one, isn't it?
for sure. But right, should we get into our most hated things? 5 most hated things about the industry. Well, should we go back and forth? You do one, I do one.
Shall we?
Let's do that. All
Let's
right,
do it.
Go on, kick it off then. What's that number one on your most hated things about the fitness industry?
I've not ranked these in any order, by the way. These are just things that come out of my head.
Okay.
I will preface this by saying I do assess other PTs to be PTs as well. So this is never a dig at anyone. Nobody take it personally.
Yeah.
The common thing that I see is a lack of aftercare from coaching.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm typically the guy people come to get out of that hole.
Right.
And if I see that the fail rate is quite high of dieting, of training, of people who do it sustainably. And it's a shame. It's a shame that PTs don't future focus past that, 12-week challenge, whatever it is, and they don't see the aftercare after that. And people think that they have to live in this like 1,200 calorie mark for the rest of their life. I've worked with so many people who come to me and say, right, what do I do now? I'm like, well, you're going to have to stay there then, aren't you? yeah, that's it. You've adapted, you're going to have to stay there. And it's painful. It's really painful.
I honestly, it's actually one of my points as well, like the aftercare and just how short-term thinking the industry is now. And it's like, it's partly driven by the coaches putting out like these 8-week and 12-week challenges, which, full disclosure, I actually did an 8-week challenge last year. But there was an aftercare. So there was 2 or 3 weeks of how to come out of that phase.
Yep.
And I had a couple of people who were on it who'd done these kind of challenges before. And the first thing they said to me was, I couldn't believe there was like an aftercare. It didn't just end at 8 weeks. There was something after it. And they were like, I really liked that, because then I knew what to do. Because both the girls who did it said, I've been to the end of the 8 weeks or 12 weeks before, and it's like, right, go and do your own thing now. And you try and get in touch with the coach, and all of a sudden, you paid your money, you've done your 12 weeks, it's kind of like back out the other end, and you're in that mill of clients just coming in and out.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of PT studios in Sheffield who just cater to that kind of audience, where it's just literally 12 weeks to get you in shape, and then there's nothing really after that. But I had a point I was going to then, but I've completely forgot it.
It is a tough one to see sometimes, because people think that's how you be healthy. That's how you be fit. You have to go up and down. You have to cycle with your weight. You have to yo-yo diet, and there's a different way. And we know there's a more sustainable way where you can be happy, enjoy your food, train hard.
And this is what I was saying. It's consumer driven as well. So it's obviously coach driven by them putting out the offers of this is what we want. You can get in amazing shape in just 8 weeks or just 12 weeks. which is never a bad thing for someone just to kind of commit to it. And I've seen a lot of people do these challenges and really be inspired, find the bug, and actually maintain it pretty well. But it's also consumer driven by people want things fast now. We live in the next day delivery, the Amazon, everything's now or yesterday. And people aren't willing to put in the work over a long period of time. But as we know, as coaches, generally what happens is the longer you stick to a program, the more drawn out it is, the more habits you instill. Like if you do something for 8 weeks, what's the chances of you doing that for the rest of the year? Very slim. And it's very intense. And if you've not had the right systems in place to fall back on, you've not had some aftercare, chances are you're going to be left on your arse, back at square one in no time. And then that's when they come to someone like yourself and you have to undo a lot of the wrongs then.
Full disclaimer, I'm sort of going to try and go like meta with this, and I'm going to try and do my own challenge in future.
Brilliant.
But try and do it like you said, like the aftercare, try and do it the right way.
Absolutely.
The education-based habit stacking sort of approach, which I'm excited to do that. It's just taking a while to build.
An 8 week plus 4 challenge.
That's a really great name.
Yeah. I'm going to see that on his social media tomorrow.
Copyright, Ryan Dunn.
An 8 week plus 4, and the plus 4 is for the aftercare. Like it's not just yes, we diet half for 8 weeks, but bear in mind there's going to be a 4 week program after this. I'm thinking I might use that now, Brad. Sorry, I might have copyrighted that.
Yeah, nobody steal that. But no, I mean, I know you said a few of these might cross over. What would you say your next one is?
I'd say I'd put this as number 1 because I think it is number 1 for me. I think it's something I absolutely despise about the industry and where it's going, and it's coaches calling out other coaches and being negative about things other coaches do, and it's just spreading this real, negative vibe around the industry. And I know coaches who their whole online marketing strategy is just taking the piss out of what other coaches do, and it's almost like a belittling thing. And I'm definitely not going to name any names here because that would be very wrong of me. But there's a certain guy I'm thinking of, and every post is pretty much just something that he doesn't like about what other coaches do. It's not really good information. It's not really like helping anyone out. It's just him bashing other people, bringing them down. And I'm gonna tell you a great quote that's always stuck with me. It was by Gary Vee, and he said, "If you've got, there's 2 different ways to have the biggest tower block in the city. You can either build the biggest tower block, or you can just knock everyone else's down." And he goes, "I've always been of the mindset of just building the biggest. Don't forget what anyone else is doing. Forget trying to knock anyone else's down. Just focus on yourself and try and build yours as good as it can get." And on the flip side of that, there's some fantastically positive guys and some great people out there who put out awesome information and are very positive. But I've really, really despised, and I've unfollowed so many people who just are just negative to other coaches, and I really hate it. It's just no one's getting anything. One
person I think does it really well is a guy called Ben Carpenter. Because
I do know this guy, but I don't think I follow him.
He's brilliant. He's really, really good, to the point where he follows up with things like he'll back things with studies, or he'll use anecdote evidence, and I really like that sort of stuff. But he'll call things out that are clearly just marketing nonsense. Do you know what I mean? And that's probably the issue. That's probably where this comes from, because people say really bold things to get your attention. They're playing the game a little bit, but then it's not backed up by anything. So I worry about coaches who are maybe marketers first, not coaches.
Definitely. We're going to pin note that one, because that's something we're going to come back to in a second. What's your second one when it comes to most hated things in the fitness industry?
Not putting kit away.
Oh, great one. I love this.
I can't. Like I said, I've said this on numerous podcasts. I used to be the general manager of a gym, and if you instill the culture, people will do it themselves. There is a way that you can almost allow people to respect the space and respect just how hard it is sometimes. Like I've seen 5'4" girls trying to load up weights that they can lift onto a machine, and then I've seen them, like somebody just leaving them, and then they can't get them off again.
Absolutely.
So they can't lift the weight that they're going to lift. If you know what I mean? It's really just painful, and you think, nobody wants to do that. Like I know it's a pain, but come on. Like,
it's manners. It's respect for other people around you. You wouldn't go into we just done an episode with Pete, right? Pete was fantastic. Came in here, very polite. He didn't come in here, take things out, leave them out, take toys out, leave the bathroom a mess. He was you go into someone's house, that's how you want them to treat the place. Same in a gym. Like it's not I'm going there. I have the privilege. Yes, I pay for my membership, but it doesn't give me the right to go in there and leave things everywhere, leave it a mess. No trace is exactly how I kind of live. Whether it's in the gym, whether it's like out and about with litter. Oh God, don't even get me onto littering. I hate littering as well. I mean, we could do a whole podcast episode just on that. But it's just there's no respect when you're not cleaning up after yourself. No one wants to go in and have to take 200 kilos off a barbell because you couldn't be asked doing it. And it always reminds me of a guy at JD Gym. I won't mention which one in Sheffield that I go to, but I don't train there much anymore. But he just literally used to load, and he was a strong bloke, really strong bloke, and he would just go in there, load up 200 plus kilos on the barbell and just leave it. Let's just walk off.
Wow. And
he was really well known for it. People would actually ask him, and managers would say to him, mate, you can't just leave it there, go and clean it up. And he'd go and take it off, and the next day he'd just do it again. Like he wasn't learning his lesson. And these are just people in life who probably, I don't know, they're probably not particularly well respected or liked because you stamp on other people, and it depends how much you believe in karma. But if he's doing it in a gym, chances are they're doing it everywhere with a lot of different people.
They definitely litter and don't put the shopping trolley away.
Shopping trolley, yeah. They're the kind of guy when you go into the car park and you see a space free and you go to pull in, there's a shopping trolley there, and you're like, you. Yeah,
he's
twat.
They've done that. 200 kilo barman. He's done that.
100%.
He's done that. But no, mate, your next one.
Number 2 for me is shadiness around supplements. I just think that supplements are a fantastic thing. That supplements are awesome. They're great. I use supplements every day. We've done a whole episode on supplements. We have I have protein. I have creatine. I have a multitude of different vitamins and minerals. But there's certain ones that I just see like pre-workout just seems to be the one that's really, really heavily pushed. And it's actually a bit of a seedy industry because I'm not 100% sure how it works in the UK, but I know in America we could start a supplement company right now, brand it, get the ingredients put in there, and it wouldn't be tested for years. Like once you kind of have a product, you can put it on shelves, and the FDA testing, which is their kind of governing body for testing of foods, is they might not kind of get to it for 18 months, 2 years, and you can have made all the money, and then at the end of the 2 years they go, no, it's not fit for consumption, take it off the shelves. What a backward system that is. I'm not sure how it works over here. I'm not sure if you have to go through the checks beforehand, but I think just for getting food out quicker over there, that's how they do it.
Yeah, I think people need to be a bit more transparent with it because the market is, like you said, if it's not very well regulated, they hook you in by saying, this will do this for you. And actually, the proof is in the name, it's a supplement.
Sorry, worse than pre-workout is fat loss pills.
Yeah.
Oh God, like fat loss pills are really heavily driven. And there was a company a good few years ago, Protein World, I think it was called. It was really heavily marketed at women. It was a yellow branding. It was kind of a lot of really glamorous looking women on the front, which got a lot of pushback as well because not very inclusive. And they actually got in the headlines initially because their protein was miles off from what it said it was. It was saying I'd had like 25 grams. I think it came out like 13 grams per serving of what they had per 30 gram serving.
Wow.
So it was miles off. I think they got fined 100 grand, and that was that slap on the wrist. Changed it, put it back out there, fine. They made millions. This is a company that made millions from this product, and they get 100 grand fine. It's just almost like a part of doing business. But the only people that are losing out is the consumer because they're not getting what they want. They're being marketed to and scammed for money. And potentially a lot of these things, I mean, if they're getting it that wrong with the protein count, how wrong are they getting it with all the other stuff, like
100%.
the vitamins and minerals and other things that are coming in there, cross-contamination potentially. There's a lot of that goes on in the industry, in these kind of factories where they make the protein. There's so much cross-contamination goes on.
I think they call it pixie dusting in America, where they like, obviously you look at a food label. Yeah, look at the food label, which is like it says the biggest ingredient first, and then the end of one it could say, oh yeah, this has got beta-alanine in it, which we know improves blood flow, etc. But they could just put like a little pixie dust in there and just mix a few things together, so it's got all these ingredients and it says we include this and this, but there's actually sod all in it. But
of course,
it's got it in it. It's just not a lot, and I'm sure they call it pixie dusting.
Right, interesting.
Just dreadful.
Yeah, so shadiness around the supplement industry, specifically, like I said, fat burners as well. There, a lot of the work, a lot of the kind of marketing for fat burners is people who've actually worked pretty hard and done the work. Let's be straight, fat burners are just caffeine essentially, aren't they?
Yep.
They're just speeding your heart rate up. So, and when I used to take these, when I was kind of first getting into the industry and you want to get lean and you might go have these fat burners and you try them, and I'd be sat there in a conversation like this, and I'd be shaking. My hand would be like this. And I'm like, oh my God, and I couldn't, that's not how you want to be. You want to be like that when you're training. When I was very young, in fact, it was funny, when my dad came over the weekend, I was exercise mad as a kid, and we were talking about how I used to, because we were watching the London Marathon. I was saying I actually used to run like a half marathon on a treadmill as a kid. I'd be on the treadmill for like 2 hours, and I got into all these different ways of trying to burn fat and get lean. And one of the things I got into was, I remember reading in a magazine when I was a kid that if you sat in the sauna for long enough, you burn fat. And so I used to sit in the sauna for like 90 minutes.
Did you?
Yeah, a long time.
Jeez.
And I remember my dad being like, I don't know how you stayed in there. And he used to keep topping the water up, and I'd open the door, my face would burn from the steam.
Wow.
And I remember going, but I'm burning fat, it'd be really good. I wasn't really, I got obsessed with that, and I was convinced that was the best way to burn fat. Now I think a lot of people in their own mind get like that. They get to this point where they're convinced that fat burners are the way they're going to burn fat, and the same way I was with the sauna. But actually what you realise is, you burn fat through movement. You don't burn fat through raising your heart rate through fat burners. You don't burn a massive amount of fat through just sitting in the sauna. You do it through movement, and that's how you burn body fat.
I will say, if anyone wants some light shining on supplements, just send them our way. Like, if you want to send us some links, like, I regularly encourage people to do that. Just if you're not sure, just DM me it.
100%. Yeah. We're more than happy to give you our kind of knowledge and insights into some of the supplements we take, and even the best brands, because you can get a great supplement like creatine, for example, but there's loads of different companies. Some are sketchy, some are shady. People are trying to mix it with all different types of things nowadays, and it waters down. Just speaking on that, if anyone wants creatine, my biggest advice is CreaPure. CreaPure is a trademarked type of creatine that is sold by, like, your bulk powders, your MyProtein, sorry. Yeah. CreaPure is a trademark thing, and you know what you're getting with that, so that's something I would always look out for.
Love that.
Your number 3, mate.
I've got, and I realise I'm probably going to rub some people up the wrong way with this one, I've put caffeine culture, which is essentially like an over-reliance on caffeine. And
just as I've down my Monster.
Yeah, I mean, look, put it this way: if caffeine was a new drug essentially, and they discovered it now, I'm quite confident they'd make it illegal. They'd be like, it does what?
Yeah,
like it enhances your cognition, it gets you hyper. Do you know what I mean? Like it gives you more energy when you. And I just think it's got to that stage now where it's been misunderstood and misused. Yeah, because caffeine is essentially, it's a stimulant, as we know. For sure. Like, I think there's a certain, I don't want to say rules, but there's certain advice that you can have around caffeine that is going to help. And it seems to be quite a big cycle. This is probably it's at least in the top 3 when I start working with new clients. I look at this because I'll think this is going to really impact your sleep if we get it wrong, for example. So, you might be one of these guys who rocks up to the gym at 6 p.m. and you crack open a can of Monster, a can of Rain. The quarter life of caffeine, I'm pretty sure it's like 6 hours. I'm sure the half-life is something like 12 hours, something like that. Yeah. So in 12 hours, you've still got half of that coffee in your system, or caffeine in your system. Yeah. And it just blows my mind. The over-reliance on it, it's like, what would happen if you trained without caffeine? What's that look like? Yeah. And people feel lesser.
For me, it's one of those exogenous things that you put into yourself that's in the category of less is more, or less becomes more over time. Yeah. I'm really aware that I'll have, I'll never have more than one Monster a day, right? Used to be a little bit higher, but I brought it down because you realise that I'm not really getting anything from it after a while. And people who have like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe not two. I think 2 or 3 cups of coffee a day is manageable. But if you're having like, you probably before where clients come to you and they're having like 7, 8, 9 cups of coffee a day. Yeah. Those last 7, 8 cups are doing nothing for you, because your body's so now heavily reliant on getting its energy from an external source that it just stops producing it. I'm not sure if this is right or not. I don't want to misquote, but I'm sure there's something related to the adrenal glands as well, where obviously we produce our own energy. Adrenal glands are massively kind of intertwined with that. And if you have an over-reliance on caffeine, potentially you're doing your adrenal glands a disservice because they're not having to work. So when you go off caffeine, there's this, like for the next week, let's say you are having 5+ cups a day. Yeah. As soon as you cut it off on a Monday morning, you're in pieces. Like your energy is going to be so low. It's like any type of addiction. I think it becomes addictive. You know you get energy, you become more tuned in, and it's a mild addiction for a lot of people having that level of like concentration, focus, and energy.
And it is. I'm sure I read a study a couple of months ago that was saying that caffeine is actually addictive. Like we'll actually actively seek it out.
Right.
So certain chocolates put it in their chocolate, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So it's almost like you crave it more. One a bit of advice if I've got for someone, if they do fall into that camp of 5, 6, 7 coffees a day, it's, you know, when you do back out of it and maybe start reducing your consumption, you might get some withdrawal symptoms, you might get headaches, it might feel a bit nasty. But what you actually do is you're almost rebalancing yourself and almost making it like resensitizing, if you like. So you're increasing your caffeine sensitivity. I don't know if you remember the first time you ever had caffeine or some sort of coffee, or I can't
remember the first time, but maybe like a pre-workout. I can remember the first time I had that real intense hit of caffeine.
I was once on an event set up at my old workplace at the EIS in Sheffield. It must have been 7 p.m. and a friend of mine just said, look, let's have a coffee to get us through. And it was like 7 p.m. I didn't sleep.
Did you know?
Just one coffee, didn't sleep.
At 7 p.m. though?
Must have been 18. Yeah.
Really?
First time I'd ever had a coffee. Just
went straight to your head. Yeah.
Could not sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had it before a few times where I've had caffeine just a little bit too late. I tend to try and have mine around 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
For me, that I remember reading something not long ago by a caffeine expert, shall we say, in inverted commas. And they were saying around 11 o'clock because you've got enough time for it to kind of get out your system. I think I had mine a bit early today because of the podcast, but you know, sometimes it does help. It does help me stay focused more, and it is. There's noticeable changes in my energy levels, in my enthusiasm, in my cognition when it comes to you know, pulling on short-term and long-term memory stuff. So I can see why it's addictive for sure.
There's a lot of science coming out now about delaying when you have your first coffee. So most people wake up and just have a coffee, but it's coming out now that you're probably better off waiting a little bit, like an hour and a half.
Definitely.
So yeah.
I've got mates who are just useless unless they've had the coffee, and that's a. I mean, imagine being that bad that you need it just to kind of be yourself in the morning. Yeah. I had a mate recently who he drinks coffee. He'll have a monster once a day, and he was also having a pre-workout. So he's having caffeine in 3 different formats: coffee, energy drink, and a pre-workout. And he's having his pre-workout like 5, 6 o'clock as well before his workout. So, and he was still able to sleep. And I was like, how do you do that?
It's the quality in it.
Yeah, but I was like, you're so unconditioned to caffeine now. It has such a little effect on you that you can have all that caffeine and a pre-workout at 5, 6 o'clock, and you're still getting bed at 10, 11, and you flat out. That what I said to him really is, it's not really doing much for you, mate. Like it's probably not giving you the energy that you think it is. And then he actually started getting really, really bad headaches, like migraine bad headaches, and he had to just come off all caffeine for a bit. And he said, I felt so much better afterwards. And then when he goes back to it and he has that first coffee, it's like, oh wow, this is actually doing something now. And you become desensitized, like you do with anything, for sure.
What's your next one, mate?
Next one is, I've phrased this in a very specific way. It's the wild, wild west of online coaching.
Ooh,
this
sounds good.
This is a controversial one for sure, and difficult for me to say because I'm in the online coaching space. But what I hate is the fact that any Tom, Dick, and Harry now can become an online coach. Like there's so many guys who I see online who've been training for maybe a while, maybe 5 years or so. They've got themselves an half decent nick and suddenly want to start kind of giving out some information, which on the surface of it, fantastic. I encourage that our industry needs some fantastic people in it. And if you're one of those guys who can bring something to the table and be a real beacon of information and positivity, awesome. Let's go for it. Let's get you on board. But what I hate is the lack of qualification. And a lot of people are getting their knowledge from social media nowadays. And I'm going to get onto that as well. It's one of my other topics. But if you're getting your information solely from like social media and not science-based research, and you haven't actually got a personal training qualification, you want to go just straight from training yourself a few years now into the online market, I question how much you really understand other people's bodies, their schedules, their limitations and capabilities. There's so many factors that are involved with coaching someone. It's not just you and your body. When you start relaying that information to someone else, it was a massive reality check for me. When I started, I'd been training for about 10 years, 11 years before I started coaching. And it was a huge shock to me, because I was now like, right, I've actually got to, these things that are working for me weren't working for someone else. And that was a big shock. So I think if you're wanting to get into the online coaching world, awesome. But I'd always encourage someone to go into a gym environment, start coaching people you know. It's vital for you understanding the body and having that one-to-one contact with someone.
The hard thing that I've seen, especially putting people through courses, is like, new PTs coming through. Everyone says that first. They always say, I want to be an online coach straight away. And I always ask them, well, why? Like, why do you want to do that? And it's all about like the freedom, the lifestyle it can bring you, which I understand, but you miss out on that connection initially. So if there's anyone listening who maybe wants to get into this sort of space, I highly encourage you to just do what Ryan said, like get in front of people, because it's much easier to transfer the skills in person online than vice versa, I found. And don't get me wrong, some people are absolutely fantastic trainers and coaches, but I always ask the question, what if something goes wrong? What if you coach someone and your lack of understanding of the human body causes them to have a stroke?
100%.
Or like if you've got someone whose blood pressure's through the roof, do you know anything about blood pressure? And you're getting them to do overhead presses. What happens if they die? Like, are you insured? If not, like you don't hear many horror stories like this, thankfully. But
I heard something not long ago about an online coach who unfortunately wasn't insured, and they had an issue with someone online, and they actually got sued. I think this guy was actually a strongman coach. Now these are obviously guys who were lifting serious amounts of weight, and the guy ended up suing him and won. And the coach unfortunately got a nasty bite. Now, number one, I think whether you're in one-to-one coach or an online coach, you need some kind of public liability insurance. There's no doubt about that. But I think it's a bit like, I think a good analogy is this, right? If you're a drug dealer, bear with me.
I'm curious.
Are you going to pay taxes? Probably not, yeah.
No.
You're probably not going to go to them. And you could potentially pay taxes, because my dad used to work in the Inland Revenue, and he said there will be people who he knew were growing weed. It was a weed growing business, horticulture, and there was no conference with, like, I don't think the police and the Inland Revenue. As long as they were paying taxes for your business, it was all good. But you're doing something illegal. You're doing something that's a bit sketchy. So you're probably not going to do it. And I think it's the same in online coaching. They're like, I'm doing something that's a bit out of my realm here. I'm doing something that's a little bit, I'm not seeing the person. It's all through messages. Why would I then go and protect myself? I can just discard them. I can blank them. I can ghost them. It's so easy online just to kind of cut someone off. And I think that online coaches have that same mentality. It's like there's no repercussions if something goes wrong. And you see it a lot with guys actually who've got fantastic followings. So they might have 50, 100, 200,000 followers, and they do coaching, and you hear loads of like bad success stories basically, or bad stories about kind of people who've been there. They might have some obviously success stories, but a lot of the people who go to those guys and they've not got that kind of foundation of value and system and just experience in coaching, they're going to get burnt. The clients are going to get really badly burnt.
I can count on one hand how many times a client has asked me for my qualification.
Yeah, true, actually. Yeah, same.
Which, put it this way, you go into a solicitor, something like that, they've probably got some sort of certificate on the wall, haven't they? So I think sometimes it's quite nice to know that there's a big thing in our industry about know, like, and trust. People might know who you are, but do they like you? That's the two things. And I think a lot of people focus on them first two, know and like. But when it comes to building trust with your audience, I think if the audience can trust you as an aspiring trainer by knowing that you are professional, that you are insured, that you're ethical, what better way to progress and make a fantastic career out of it?
But I think the consumer can sometimes be a bit, what's the right word? Do
you find they come out of like desperation sometimes? Like they don't care, they just want a result.
Yeah, a little bit of that desperation. And when you're in that desperate sense of I just want results, who's going to get me results? You go online and immediately you see a guy who's got a phenomenal physique, and you're like, I want his physique. Then you start overlooking his qualifications, you start overlooking his content and what he knows. You start overlooking a lot of the kind of sensible things that you should be looking at when you purchase something from someone, a service. history of people, reviews, things of that nature. And you go straight for it, and you kind of just expect it to be amazing because he looks amazing. Same thing I said, like, just because someone looks great, it's a good business card, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be able to get the best results. And online coaching, I use that word wild, wild west because it is a bit of it's unregulated. There's no one regulating the online market right now. I remember when I first got into coaching, or one-to-one coaching, it was kind of the same thing. Once you get your qualification, you're free to go and do what you want. As long as you're insured, you've set your own business, set your own studio. No one's coming into your business and like regulating and doing an audit of what you're kind of putting people through. It's just don't kill people, and as long as you do that, you're all right. So that maybe there needs to be in this like world of health, fitness, online coaching, some kind of governing body where you have to go to them and show them that you can practice in a safe and sustainable way.
This is going to tie really well into my next thing that I hate.
Cool.
Which is the fail rate of PTs dropping out.
Yeah, it's big.
90% in the first year,
wow.
Which is actually embarrassing, to be honest. Like, it's the first time you're actually going to see me get a little bit moody and annoyed because it annoys me, that stat. I absolutely hate that stat.
Yeah. And being in that industry of qualifying people as well.
Yeah. And I saw an interesting quote the other day, which was, stats are like clothes. What they show you is quite interesting. What they don't show you is also equally as interesting.
Yeah.
And you have to think like, well, what doesn't that stat tell you? That stat probably doesn't tell you that the aftercare of maybe coaching courses isn't as great. People's business acumen probably isn't great. So we have to think like, as trainers and as coaches, how can we help other new trainers coming through? But then you have to think, well, if I'm a new coach, why would I help somebody else? It's like, it's competition. So great stat. Let me be one at 10% and let me stand on my hill and be really proud. But there's a client of mine, ex-client of mine, Keith, I want to shout out. He once compared our industry to like being on the same level as doctors sometimes. And bear with me again. But he basically said like, doctors are the reactive ones. PTs can be the proactive ones. We can stop that happening. We can stop people absolutely swamping the NHS with just things that can be prevented. We can build the muscle. We can make them stronger people. We can make them more resilient people.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, with that 9% fail rate, it's not good enough. It's not going to happen.
I think a lot of that, and we spoke briefly off the podcast about this, is the fact that when you become a coach, most of the time you're looking at some level of self-employment. You're looking at some level of starting and having your own business. And yes, a qualification is fantastic for teaching the basics of how to understand people, essentially, their anatomy, the best practices for coaching and getting results. But it doesn't teach you about accountancy. It doesn't teach you about marketing. It doesn't teach you about so many factors involved with growing and scaling your business. So when you look at the hourly rate of a coach, it's not bad. 30, 40, sometimes upwards of £50 an hour. You're like, right, well, all it is 40 sessions a week, I'm sorted. It might take you 3 years, 4 years to get to 40 sessions a week. For some coaches who maybe haven't got that acumen, and some coaches never get there. And the actual thing is, that's why I think a lot of them drop out, is because they see this golden pot of other people doing great in the industry, and they want that. They go, right, I just need to kind of get to their level and it'll be sweet. But they don't understand the work involved. They don't understand that there's so much more to it and so many more things you have to learn than just the books. And it's one of the things that I think is great about the Station Gym now doing their qualification. I think, are you going to be working with them on potentially delivering that? Yeah. Not sure if I've opened the can of worms there.
No. I think it's more like there's different quality assessors you can do, and like that, I'll hopefully be on board as one of the quality assessors to make sure everything's of the highest standard, should say. Yeah, for sure.
And speaking to Tom the two Toms who were kind of heading that, they want some kind of business side to it as well, which I think is really, really good to set people up for like, right, this is what you need. Here's some templates and strategies that we would use. Because it's like aftercare. We've still got aftercare with clients, giving them the 12-week result, and then giving them something afterwards to make sure it's sustainable and good long term. Why aren't coaches getting that in those 9% of people that drop out? They haven't had that aftercare to be like, right, now it's up to you to go and do it. And there's something I'd like to see more of.
I just see it as those 90% of people who are dropping out, they're missing out on what we feel and experience every day, which is we live what we've always wanted to do.
Absolutely.
We get on board. We love working with people. Like me and my wife said this. Like she's in a very customer focused industry as well, but there's no chance we'd meet the people that we meet without being in this sort of customer facing role, and it just broadens your horizons so much. So. Definitely. Yeah, if you are someone who's aspiring to get into it, or you're a parent who fancies like a change of career, which I see really regularly on the courses I assess, they might have different types of learners, some younger, some a little bit older, and they're doing it for the right reasons, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and that's it. Everyone gets into industry for the right reasons because they want to help people. Yeah. Yes, there's a money aspect to it as well, and it's got to be a financial thing, as with every kind of decision we make. Yeah. But you choose personal training because you probably have at some point either changed your own life and seen massive benefits, or you've changed someone else's life, family, friend, someone completely new, and you've seen the benefits and the joy. And honestly, it's so, I can't say how, exactly how rewarding it is to take someone through that whole process. And it's addictive, but you need a lot of those to sustain a business.
I think if you've got someone around you who wants to get into what we do, just encourage them to treat it professionally. Encourage them to give them a nudge. Be like, have you done your accounts this month? Have you kept up to date with stuff?
And
just
also as well,
give them a nudge.
What I'd say is, don't be afraid to be a bit of a guinea pig. Like if they're giving out some free sessions, take one. Give them some feedback. If it was crap, honestly, tell me it was a crap session. Like they'd love to know it. Be brutally honest, and especially if it's a family or a friend, a family member or a friend. Those are people you can be a bit more honest with. So go and be their guinea pig and let them grow from it for sure.
Thank you for letting me vent, Ryan.
No worries. Next one for you. Number 4 for me is this totalitarian approach to agendas, and I put in brackets Eddie Abu. So this idea that because something's bad for someone, it's bad for everyone. Yeah. And you might have seen this Eddie Abu online. He's everywhere. I've got clients asking me about him. I can't eat bread because Eddie Abu said it's shit. And you've got a video of him stood there going, guy, this is shit. Don't eat this food ever again. And I'm like, mate, it might be bad for you. Yeah. It might be bad for a certain demographic, but it ain't bad for everyone. Yeah. Just because it gives you gut issues, just because it makes your skin condition worse, it doesn't mean that it has that same effect on everyone. It's very isolated to certain people and demographics, these foods, but it makes for great watching. When you've got a bloke who's semi-jacked, bit older, looks like he knows what he's talking about, in a supermarket saying, this is shite. He's swearing as well. It's quite abrupt, this. Yeah. It's compelling. You want to watch it. You want to go, oh shit, he looks like he knows what he's talking about. What else is shit? And then you go through all the foods that he thinks are shit, and you're like, oh, it's 95% of things in the supermarket, so I can't have anything really. And actually, I remember looking at one of Eddie's nutritional plans. Yep. And honestly, there's less than 10 foods that you can have on his programs. Yep. And that's what, forever? That's it? Yep. We're going to cut out all processed stuff for the rest of eternity? Of course not. Come on.
Annoyingly, his message overarching is eat less processed foods. Yep. Eat more natural whole foods, which is a banging message, to be fair.
Amazing.
But how you communicate it is really important, because I've said this before, I've worked with numerous people who have eating disorders or who have had eating disorders, and that's one of the reasons that motivated me to get a nutritional qualification, to understand that side of things, to best help them, really. And it's amazing how someone of influence like that can promote, or I don't know, cause someone to spiral, shall we say, really trigger them in this this diet culture that they had, or, well, I can't have that, or Slimming World said I could do that, but Eddie says I can't. People confused, man.
I think with the online information that's out there now, the waters were very muddy, about what is right and what's wrong. Do you do an intermittent fast? Do you go keto? Do you go paleo? Do you just do if it fits your macros? There's so many different avenues you can go down. But Eddie's murked the waters even more in terms of bringing processed food. We all knew processed foods were bad, but now he's really limiting the kind of pool, and because he's got quite a big audience and he reaches a lot of people, it's affecting their decision making. For some people, it's going to be fantastic, and I've seen some success stories where people come up to on the street and said, "I've taken your advice, it's been great." But also, it's going to give certain people complexes around foods. It really is, and for the majority of people, we don't need to cut out all the foods that he's saying we need to cut out. It's just, it's not necessary. It's not going to affect you. It's only going to make you unhappy, and that's never a good thing.
And so I think sometimes you always have to have a look at the context as well. Like, I think that one of the posts he said was about bread and how many ingredients it's got. Like, for example, me and Ted and Amy, we try and make his own bread when we can. And it's not that hard. It's like 4 ingredients. Right. It's not that hard. It's quite good fun. Okay. Ted gets stuck in. It's quite fun.
Yeah.
But for some people, they might have got 5 or 6 kids. They might be absolutely rushed off their feet. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? He's not accounting for them people.
No.
He's saying to them, you need to cook all your stuff from fresh, and you need to do... It's like, come on, man. You're not meeting anybody where they're at.
No, for sure. Sometimes just slapping Uncle Ben's rice in there, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's I haven't got time to sit down and make... Yes, if I meal prep, I've got all my portions ready. I'll do it from fresh. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
But look, for our demographic, from a time perspective, from a reality perspective, it's pros... It's risk versus reward, isn't it? The reward is it takes you less time.
Yeah.
The risk is maybe it's slightly worse for your health. And for me, it's the constant battle you make with every decision surrounding food. Risk versus reward, time versus quality. They're the 2 issues. And yes, in an ideal world, we'd all eat whole, natural, unprocessed foods. But it's just not the world we live in. And for a lot of people, you can get away with eating some more heavily processed foods occasionally, not all the time, occasionally, and you'll be absolutely fine. You're going to have no adverse noticeable side effects.
Yeah.
But what it is going to save you is time and pleasure and sanity.
And I think to give people a bit of food for thought, there could be someone listening to this thinking, well, hang on, there's a little bit of hypocrisy here when we're saying we don't want other coaches calling out other coaches. But the way that I see it, and I will say this now,
for sure,
I see him as more of a marketer than a trainer.
100%.
And that is why I have no issue with what you just said.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think look, it's a controversial episode. We're here to kind of call out things that we dislike, and unfortunately, with certain things. And I'm not just actually. I say Eddie as an example. There's a lot of guys out there doing exactly the same thing. There's an American guy that I can't think of the name of, but he basically does exactly what Eddie does, and he goes round and calls out all those American foods and says this is crap. He's probably got a bigger pool of things to go off because it's huge over there.
Is he wearing a stethoscope as well when he says it? That's...
in a lab coat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of guys out there. Eddie's just kind of the poster boy for this, but. Yeah, you're right. They're marketers more than anything else. And don't get me wrong, these guys are probably making a small fortune. I saw one guy mention that Eddie might be on 50k a month at the moment doing what he's doing with his programs. It's small fortunes, but I get it's compelling. And I think if you're at your wit's end and you feel crap and you're not feeling good and you're stuck in a rut and you're constantly tired and you can't get out of bed and your motivation's low, you're constantly stressed, you hate life and your job, and someone's saying, look, eat some less heavily processed foods and you'll feel great. You're going to feel great. There's no doubt about that. But again, as with everything, think about longevity, think about sustainability, think about what's going to make you happier and that trade-off of risk and reward in the long run.
My probably last, point number 5, the things that I really hate about the fitness industry, I've put in here probably other end of the scale, evidence-based dogmatists. And all I mean by that is people who go, well, this study says this. And that's all they're bothered about. They've got absolutely zero anecdotal proof that is the case. It's just, well, this study said this. And for anyone who's ever read a study, and I expect this to be a very small percentage of the population, you'll realise how polarising it can be. It's like an 8 or 12 week block. Whereas we know, like, the aftercare, if you put somebody through a study and say, oh, we found that back squats were better for building this than glutes, than hip thrusts, and people just, all they do is hip thrusts or whatever, like, what if you studied them for a year, 18 months? It won't happen because of the costings. That is where I see the flaw in the evidence-based market and people who just say, this is what this study said. It's like, well, yeah, but what does the actual proof say? Like long term, yeah.
The tricky thing about evidence-based, and full disclosure, I'm all evidence-based. Most of the stuff that I implement with clients and I take on as gospel in my own training and the philosophies I have with training clients is all based off the back of evidence-based stuff. I'm all for that. But the thing with evidence-based training is you can create biases. So you can create biases. The people who do the study create biases. The people who fund the study can create biases. You can interpret a study as a third person in your own way and a bias. And you can. There's been so many situations and scenarios where good voices in the industry, I'm thinking about people like Lane Norton, for example, have taken a well-known study and something that was quite renowned, and they basically debunked it and gone, well, this study showed that, like I said, let's say glute bridges were better than back squats for building your legs. But he breaks the study down and goes, well, the demographic was people who were doing back squats for long periods of time, and then as soon as they changed over to glute bridges, of course it added another stimulus in there. And so you have to basically factor in that element to it. You have to factor in like age and training at times, length of study, like you mentioned. There's so many things that are within the studies just aren't quite nailed, and people don't do studies in the most optimal way.
It's the lack of diversity as well. If you look at the predominant people who take part in these studies, they're American college-age males. That's it. That's the majority, yeah.
Is it?
Which you have to think, college-age males, they've got a lot of things going for them, haven't they? Do you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
Whereas I'd love to actually pick somebody's brains called Lee Bell. I don't know if you know, come across Lee.
Yeah, I know Lee. I met him in the gym, and not long ago he was doing some of his own. He did a lot of his own studies. He was doing something with a coach at your gym. Yeah,
I'd love to hear his thoughts on this sort of stuff, because he's a very, very smart man.
Maybe he's the person we have on the podcast potentially throw out a little line to.
He's in the weeds as well of it. Do you know what I mean? He's physically doing it.
Yeah,
which I'd love to hear his views.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
maybe we pick a topic and potentially try and headhunt him for the podcast.
And he's quite big on overtraining, which is a big passion of mine. So yeah.
Well, that ties really well into my last point, which is just one word: misinformation. We live in the information age. Like there's never been a time in history when you can access information, and it's phenomenal because it's great. We can. There's so many benefits to that, but there's also in certain sectors a real muddying of the waters, and misinformation is just huge. And maybe it is tied into like the Eddie Abu message and things of that nature. But I think it's misinformation about everything, about exercises and what's right and what's wrong. And one of the things that a client said to me recently, a new client, she said, I really like having one voice. I like having someone steering the ship and being able to come to that person with one engaging and compelling message, and I'm not being bombarded with several other compelling messages all at the same time that are kind of completely changing my course, my direction and my focus. And I'm sure a lot of listeners will massively relate to this when I say that you come across someone who says, I don't know, eating one meal a day is the best thing ever, and you try it for a little bit, and then someone else comes along and goes, actually you probably want to cut out carbs as well, and you go, oh well, I eat one meal a day and I'll cut out all carbs, and all of a sudden your whole week is a combination of 7 or 8 different things that you're following, and none of them are really being stuck to. It's a real mishmash of information that you've read online. Whereas when you come to a coach, one of the best things is you get that one voice guiding the ship, taking you in one direction, and actually, being the voice of reason, essentially.
As you were talking there, mate, I've just searched a contact of mine called Shane Nugent, and he put out a fantastic post all about social media masterclass. He's put what we've learned from nutrition influencers this week.
Okay.
I'm going to read out probably 6 or 7 of these.
Perfect. Let's go for it.
Don't eat carbs, don't eat fat. Alcohol makes you fat. Restricting your calories can put you in starvation mode. Sugar is addictive. Insulin is the cause of weight gain. And no lie, there's about 30 points there. And that's just him going through social media and being like, this is very polarizing. I'll stand by it, but if you are a marketer above a trainer, this is the trap that you fall into. Yeah, because it's really, 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 really hard for a consumer, because we're in, as people who are in the online market and just people who market our businesses, like we need to put out good information that kind of people follow and hopefully respond well to. Every single person trying to do that. And I think this is where it gets tricky, because you also get a lot of people, going back to the online coaching side of things, putting out information that they don't really understand. Maybe it's just regurgitated. Maybe it's based on nothing. Maybe it's based on something they read. Like a lot of the information that I try and put out is things I've either experienced myself or with clients. I'm speaking off the back of my own personal in-house studies. And a lot of that is science-based. Some of it's not, actually. Some of it's just like anecdotal things I've found have worked. I've never found a study that's backed it up, but it's just something that I've found and I think might help other people. But it's all based off my own insights and experience. Well said. Have you ever seen the Joe DeFranco example, where Joe DeFranco is a strength and conditioning guy in America, and he was really big on sled pushers for quite a long time. Is he a ball guy, I think? I think amazing eyebrows.
Did he blew his shoulder? He blew his shoulder out not long ago. Yeah,
yes,
I know exactly what you mean.
Absolutely amazing mind. Well,
Right.
looks just like a meathead, to be fair.
Yeah,
but
he
amazing
does.
mind.
Yeah, he does.
And for years, he were pushing the message about a sled and that sort of stuff, like doing heavy sled work.
Cool.
You know, it's fantastic. It doesn't give you too much soreness. And all these studies were coming out saying, what's Joe know? But he's like, I've seen it happen. I've put through all these NFL athletes and they're all smashing it. And eventually,
Works for a lot of MA people as well. Yeah.
and eventually the studies caught up. And rather than being arrogant and being like, I told you so, it was just like, there you go.
Yeah.
And
could have made a big deal of it. But it was like,
could have made a massive deal of it. And he didn't. He just went, yeah, because I've been doing it.
it's a nod in the right direction of like,
Yeah.
sometimes before studies are done, before everything's caught up, I crack something. I suss something. I figure something out. There might be nothing to back it up. There might be some studies debunking it, but I know from real first-hand experience that it's working. And it's the reason why if you're trying to build muscle, right, you can do it just off listening to the science-based guys, or you can go to a professional bodybuilder, someone who's performed at an elite level, and he's got no research, no science, he's only got experience. Are you going to discard everything that guy says because he isn't following to the T what a science-based person says? No, you're not, because he's lived it, he's breathed it, he's got that first-hand experience. He's just as important, arguably more important than what the science says, because he's lived and breathed everything, every rep, every nuance with every exercise, every different type of dieting style. He's done it all. He's someone that's an invaluable resource, and he's just as important as the science, for sure.
I've just noted down there as well, like, if you are a consumer and you want this misinformation debunking, I really encourage people to think quite critically and not just believe what they're told. You know, maybe just question it. Like, if you hear that, question it. Do you know what I mean? Maybe just ask them directly. Just be
100%.
like, where have you got this information from?
Definitely.
And more often than not, if they know what they're talking about, they'll come back with a decent response. They'll probably follow it up, or they'll have answered it in another post, for example. People haven't got a clue what they're talking about will struggle at this point, and you'll be able to see through them.
Just to give, I guess, the listeners some insight into maybe people who they can. Let's. I know it's the negative one today, isn't it? It's the things we hate. But let's end on a positive note. Let's not say this is who you should avoid.
Yep.
Let's say this is who you should follow. This is who you should listen to. Maybe, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 people you could recommend to clients?
I've recommended Ben Carpenter already.
Yep.
Yeah, you've obviously said Lane Norton as well.
Yeah.
I think someone who, again, Joe DeFranco, I know I've said all of those today, but
Brilliant.
Joe DeFranco is quite nuanced because he's quite sporty, but he does a lot with young kids as well.
Yeah.
Does a lot of getting
Brilliant.
kids into sport.
Brilliant.
Ben Carpenter's very, polarising with things. He does a lot of the misinformation things. And to be fair, Shane Nugent as well, who I've literally just mentioned,
Awesome.
from a place called Quantum Nutrition.
Amazing.
It's called. He's incredible. I think
Fantastic.
he's Olympic level nutritionist. He's incredible.
Awesome. For me, there's probably 2 guys really that I kind of base a lot of my protocols on. One's a more recent guy I've come across maybe in the last year or so, Dr. Mike Israel. I
Yep.
think he's got a fantastic YouTube channel. He basically covers so many different topics around the fitness industry and the good, the bad, the ugly, and he has a really good, just no nonsense, level-headed approach to it all, and a little bit funny as well. Quite very sarcastic, brace yourself, but funny guy. And the other guy is Jeff Nippard. I really like Jeff. I followed him for many, many years. I think he's put out some great information. Very, very science-based, and sometimes it can turn people off. But I've got so many unusual and obscure exercises from him and different training styles because of his way of thinking. And just things that have come back from his own research of being really effective. I was going to mention a few, but I don't want to get too technical on the podcast. I think with it being an audio podcast, me demonstrating things probably won't work. But there's a lot of very accessory-based shorter exercises that I've come across recently that I've really seen massive amounts of benefit from, just from small changes in hand positions and angles and bends in certain joints. And then again, just the last one, Lane Norton, without a shadow of a doubt. More so when it comes to nutrition. I think he tends to do a lot more nutrition debunking. It's a fantastic resource for me. Actually, one more I'm going to recommend, and I'm sure you'll agree, Squat University.
Yes.
Awesome resource for not just squatting, which it sounds like it is, but he does all sorts of different rehab exercises, how to get rid of different joint pains, and all this is again anecdotal and research based. And and he can fix anything. I genuinely believe if you go to him, he can fix anything. He puts a lot of this information out online. He's an awesome resource, both on Instagram, on YouTube. So there's a whole list there. We've got Dr. Mike Israel, Jeff Nippard, Lane Norton, Scott University. What were the ones? Shane Nugent,
Joe DeFranco.
Ben Carpenter. Yeah. A great list of people that I would highly recommend you follow. And if you don't want to muddy the waters too much, I think a lot of their messages are relatively similar. So get following.
Definitely. I would love to know what other people think as well in terms of what do they dislike from a consumer standpoint, because we live it every day. I'd love to hear from people where they struggle. What do they not like about what we do? If
you're watching us on YouTube, drop a comment below if you think there's any other guys in the industry that you really love and think are worth following. Drop them a comment. We'd love to follow those guys, and we'd love to broaden our horizons in terms of who we listen to. So comment below.
Definitely, and just don't forget to forward the Fit Dads.
Yes, forward the Fit Dads is our new hashtag for just sharing it with people that you think might enjoy the podcast. And let's not be around the bush. It helps us grow. We want to reach a bigger audience, and it does a massive favour for sure.
I think this is one of the reasons why we wanted to have this sort of medium to talk, because if we're clipping this up into social media, mate, no chance. We're just playing the game, aren't we? Whereas we want to add value, we want to give context. So
hashtag forward the Fit Dads. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for joining us on this episode, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
See you soon. Thank you.